Morning sunlight filters through the tall courthouse windows, across the polished wooden benches in sharp beams of gold. Dust motes drift lazily in the light, catching for a moment before disappearing into the shadows. The courtroom smells faintly of coffee and ink, but underlying it all is something heavier anticipation, like static in the air before a storm. Today isn't going to be just another case on the docket. Today, a family that the world knows from the carefully curated lens of reality television will confront truths that were never meant to be public. Kody Brown sits at the defendant's table, his hands folded neatly in front of him but betraying a slight tremble. He readjusts his tie, smooths his hair, and takes another deep breath. He knows this day could define the rest of his life, or at least the life of the family he had tried so desperately to protect. Behind him, his wives fill a row of seats, each one a picture of tightly coiled anxiety. Christine, her lips pressed firmly together, stares down hard at the floor, refusing to make eye contact with anyone. Her hands are balled tight into fists. Her knuckles are pale, but there's a fire behind her eyes, the kind of fire that speaks of words too sharp to be spoken yet. Robyn twists the beads of her bracelet again and again, the quiet clicking filling the silence around her. Janelle shuffles papers, small but purposeful motions, revealing the nervous energy coursing through her body. And Meri grips her purse like a lifeline and looks ahead, her jaw clenched and her thoughts closely guarded. The judge enters, his black robe billowing behind him like dark water. A hush sweeps through the room. Even the faintest cough seems amplified in this charged atmosphere. In the background, cameras whir softly, their lenses taking in every nuance of expression, every slightest twitch of a hand, every flash of fear or defiance. The clerk calls the case, her voice cutting sharp in the quiet. Kody swallows hard, feeling the weight of every eye in the room. Every word spoken today might unravel everything he's tried to hold together, every decision laid bare for public judgment. Mr. Brown, you may begin your opening statement, the judge intones, voice calm but carrying the weight of authority. Kody stands up, his back straight, but a slight tremor betrays his nerves. He clears his throat to speak, voice steady but laced with an emotion he cannot hide. Your Honor, and everyone present in this courtroom, this isn't just about the allegations, he says. It's about the truth and the consequences when family fractures in ways no one sees behind the cameras. We've lived a life in the public eye, but there are truths, secrets that no show has ever captured. Today, they come to light. Christine fidgets in her seat, her voice barely above a whisper, yet Robyn distinctly hears her. He always does this, Christine says, her voice sharp with frustration and disbelief. Robyn shakes her head quietly, lips pursed, her eyes shining with unshed tears. The prosecution rises, commanding and articulate. Their opening statement cuts like a knife, painting Kody as a man who has manipulated, neglected, and misled those closest to him. They paint a picture of favoritism, decisions made behind closed doors, and alliances forged without the knowledge or consent of the rest of the family. Each word cuts through the calm veneer Kody maintains, and the courtroom is thick with tension that feels almost physical. Robyn is the first to testify, her voice cracking, even though she's trying to hold on to composure. I never wanted this for any of us, she says with tightly folded hands in her lap. The words feel small, almost fragile, but in the silence that follows, they feel monumental. The judge nods, accepting her testimony, but the tension doesn't let up, it multiplies. Every glance between the wives sends unspoken questions. Who knew what? Who betrayed whom? And what will be revealed next? Christine rises slowly, her posture rigid and her eyes flashing. You think you know the story, she says, her tone calm but cutting through the silence like a blade. But you don't, not even a fraction. And some of you won't like the part about betrayal. Her gaze sweeps the room, landing briefly on each wife before returning to Kody, as if to say this revelation could shake the very foundation of the family. The courtroom holds its collective breath. Every whisper, every movement, every subtle glance becomes magnified under such close scrutiny of anticipation. The morning edges toward recess, and the weight of what has been said presses down on everyone present. Then, the prosecution reveals the first bombshell, a set of private messages between Kody and one of his wives, conversations never meant for eyes other than their own. The words across the screen are incriminating, intimate, and chilling in their implications. Christine gasps audibly, her hand flying over her mouth. The color bleeds from Kody's face as his jaw clamps down on the words of evidence he is reading. Robyn leans forward, whispering, I can't believe it. I didn't know. The courtroom seems to shrink. the walls inching in, as if the building itself feels the weight of the revelation. Janelle shifts uncomfortably, muttering under her breath, "This is worse than I thought." Meri just stares, her mouth slightly open, the initial shock frozen across her features. Even the judge furrows his brow, pushing his glasses up the bridge of his nose as if in an attempt to process the sudden shift. As the court adjourns for a brief recess, whispers ripple through the room like wildfire. Lawyers consult in hushed tones, reporters scribble furiously, and the wives huddle in quiet groups. Their expressions a mix of fear, anger, and confusion. Each person is acutely aware that the next moments in this courtroom could irreversibly change relationships, reputations, and trust. Outside, the bright sunlight is stark and unrelenting. It casts a glare off the polished stone steps, reminiscent of the intensity inside. The Brown family stands together yet apart, bound by ties of love, duty, and shared history, yet strained almost to breaking. No one speaks, but the air between them vibrates with unspoken tension. Returning inside, the afternoon session promises to be more revealing. Christine's gaze lingers on Kody for a beat too long. Robyn's fingers tighten on the edge of her chair, her nails digging into the wood. Janelle folds and unfolds a piece of paper, small motions that belie her turmoil. Meri sits with her purse pressed to her chest, as if it might shield her from the storm to come. The atmosphere in the courtroom is now different. It is no longer a strictly legal trial. It became a scene in which every look, every utterance, every sigh was scanned for meaning. In this courtroom, the collision of reality television fame and personal betrayal has consequences that will reverberate long after there is a verdict. And then, the gavel falls, testifying is about to start, and everyone knows things can never go back to normal. Secrets buried, so carefully concealed behind smiles, scripted lines, and reality show cameras begin to come into view. The question hangs in the air like smoke. Who will crack under the pressure, and whose betrayal will shatter forever the fragile balance of this family? The courtroom opens again after the short break, but it's heavier now, almost unbearably so. The sun has moved, casting long, slanted shadows across the floor, making the wooden benches seem darker, more menacing. Kody sits ramrod straight at the defendant's table, his hands clasped hard, fingers quivering with repressed energy. Christine's eyes dart around the room, sharp and piercing, as if challenging anyone to look at her wrong. Robyn sits beside him, the bracelet clicking softly, nervously, while Janelle and Meri both clutch their notes like lifelines, preparing themselves for what is yet to come. The prosecution stands, a stack of documents in hand, and the room is quiet again. They start laying out the first wave of evidence, private messages, emails, and recordings that none of the wives knew would come out. The evidence emerges as a tapestry of secret alliances, conversations behind closed doors, and calculated decisions that left certain family members blindsided. Every revelation tightens the tension, like invisible cords wrapping around the hearts of everyone present. First to the stand is Meri. Her legs quiver as she gets up, and her voice shakes when she speaks. I didn't want anyone to know, she admits, looking momentarily at Robyn, who quickly looks away, not meeting her gaze. But it had to come out. I couldn't just continue pretending nothing happened. She swallows hard, and the courtroom seems to hold its collective breath. Even the judge leans forward slightly, listening intently, as though aware that this testimony could shift the balance altogether. Christine's lips curl into a tight, controlled smile, though it doesn't quite reach her eyes. Her voice is calm but cuts like a razor. "You hid behind lies, Meri," she says, her gaze cutting into her. "We all did. But some lies hurt more than others." The words cut like a slap, and even Kody flinches at the sharpness of them. Robyn bites her lip as tears threaten to spill. Janelle shifts uncomfortably, not quite successfully masking her own internal struggle. The prosecution continues, delving into a series of secret conversations and hidden actions. Every response seems to shrink the room further, the air becoming even thicker. Kody's jaws clench, his knuckles white as he grips the table. He looks at Robyn, seeking some kind of reassurance, but all he finds reflected back is the faces of fear and hurt. Christine settles back in her chair, her arms folded, eyes flashing a silent defiance. Attention shifts now to Robyn, who slowly gets to her feet. Her posture speaks volumes of courage laced with anxiety. Her voice, still steady, echoes all the sleepless nights, whispered arguments, and tears in private. "I tried to protect everyone," she says, glancing at Kody. But protecting sometimes means hiding the truth, and hiding it has consequences. Her words hang in the air, still echoing across the room, even the reporters leaning forward in anticipation. Christine breaks in, voice cracking with controlled anger. You think tears erase choices made behind closed doors? She snaps, glare unfaltering. Kody flinches, realizing that even her fury carries a precision, a surgical strike to wound and reveal. Robyn swallows, eyes glistening, but doesn't break her gaze. She knows today is about truth. No matter how painful, the tension escalates as the prosecution reveals the next piece of evidence, a tape recording of a very private conversation between Kody and one of the wives. The contents are explosive intentions, manipulations, and decisions that no other wife knew about. The courtroom fills with gasps as the recording plays, and even the judge raises an eyebrow in surprise. Kody pales, his hands trembling as he leans forward, trying to process the betrayal laid bare in his own voice. Meri's sobs are uncontrollable now, ricocheting off the wooden walls. Janelle covers her face with her hands as the emotion is too much to bear. The calm exterior of Robyn cracks, and a deep-seated pain follows. Christine just sits silently, the small smirk on her lips showing satisfaction as this unfolds before her. The court takes a brief recess to allow the families to collect themselves, but whispers fill the hallways outside. Reporters speculate, lawyers converse in hushed tones, and even the security officers seem tense. Every member of the Brown family feels the weight of exposure, the sensation that there is no returning to the way things were. By the time they get back, the atmosphere has changed once more. The shadows in the room seem to be longer, the air cold, as if even the room had felt the gravity of the revelations. Christine leans towards Kody, her voice low but icy. You think you can keep us in line? Keep the truth hidden? Today proves otherwise. The prosecution resumes, zeroing in on financial irregularities and hidden decisions that had been ignored. Every question digs deeper into the web of secrecy surrounding the family, forcing each wife to confront the truth in public for the first time. His eyes dart from one wife to another, silently pleading for loyalty, for understanding, for some small sign that the family he thought he knew is still intact. Robyn speaks again, her voice cracking, but with the weight of a steely resolve inside. We've all made mistakes, but today, those mistakes are being laid bare, and we can't unsee them. Her words hold a dual weight, remorse for past errors and a demand for accountability that hit everyone hard. Christine finally rises again, her presence commanding the room. She speaks slowly, deliberately. This isn't about mistakes. This is about betrayal, and there's a cost involved in betrayal. Her eyes scan the room, locking on each wife. Each glance a silent accusation, a challenge. Kody swallows hard, knowing that words alone may not mend what has been broken. By the end of the day, the wives have been pushed to their emotional limits. The courtroom is thick with tension, the air almost palpable with fear, anger, and heartbreak. Every testimony, every revelation has ratcheted up the stakes, and the family knows that the decisions made here could have lasting consequences far beyond the courthouse walls. Evening descends upon the courthouse, and the room now feels confined, almost claustrophobic, as shadows stretch long across the polished wooden floors. The fluorescent lights hum softly, casting a cold, clinical glow over the tense faces in the courtroom. Kody sits at the defendant's table, elbows on the polished wood, hands clasped tightly, jaw tense. Each heartbeat seems loud enough to echo off the walls, a rhythm of anxiety mirroring the turmoil in his mind. Christine sits behind him, eyes sharp and calculating, arms crossed tightly across her chest, while Robyn fidgets with the beads on her bracelet, fingers clicking nervously. Janelle sits stiffly, shifting papers that now seem more like shields than notes, and Meri clutches her purse as if it could somehow protect her from the storm of revelations still to come. The judge comes in, and the next phase of testimony begins. A low murmur, the rustling of papers, and the quiet settling into tense anticipation. The prosecution rises to their purpose, their briefcases filled with evidence, documents, and recordings that could tilt the balance irreversibly. They start calling witnesses, first family friends and associates who, over the last few months, had noticed strange behavior and furtive meetings. Each piece of testimony adds another layer to the web of betrayal, secrecy, and mistrust that has been building quietly behind closed doors for years. Meri is called again to the stand, and her legs tremble as she rises. She swallows hard, her lips quivering, speaking with a fragile honesty that cuts through the cold courtroom air. I didn't think anyone would ever understand why I did what I did, she says, eyes darting nervously to Kody. But hiding the truth, it became unbearable. I needed someone to know, even if it hurt. Her confession hangs heavy in the air, the weight of long-hidden secrets pressing down on every person in the room. Christine's lips purse for a moment, a control smirk flashing across her features. Her voice is calm, almost surgical, as she says in response, "You believe that by hiding something, things will be easier? They are not. It only makes the betrayal sharper when the truth finally reveals itself." The quiet is cut by her words, leaving the room trembling with the weight of such intensity. Robyn's lips press together, a slight quiver giving away the emotion she battles to hold inside. Janelle fidgets in her seat, clutching at her notes so tightly that the knuckles whiten. Even Kody, who usually remains composed under pressure, appears momentarily taken aback, the first visible crack in his exterior coolness. The prosecution doesn't let up. They produce more evidence, phone records, text messages, and emails showing alliances and private decisions made without Kody's knowledge. The court grows heavier with tension as it becomes clear that trust has not just been strained, it has been undermined in ways no one expected. Each revelation prompts gasps, whispered comments, and tense glances among the wives. The dynamics of the family, so carefully curated on television, are now exposed in raw, unfiltered detail. Robyn is called back to the stand. Her voice, though trembling slightly, carries an undeniable weight. I tried to protect everyone. I really did. But in doing so, I became part of the problem, she admits. And now we're all here, forced to face the consequences. Her eyes meet Kody's for a long moment, a silent plea for understanding that seems almost impossible in the charged atmosphere of the courtroom. Christine rises slowly, her posture commanding yet laced with tension. "You all talk about protection and loyalty," she says, voice steady but icy, "but loyalty doesn't excuse deception. And protection doesn't erase the truth." Her words seem to freeze the room, a pause so profound that even the judge leans forward slightly. As though sensing the storm about to break, the prosecution introduces a new recording, one that Kody himself had forgotten existed. In it, his voice is calm, but the words reveal hidden intentions and private discussions with one of his wives that contradict what had been publicly known. The courtroom collectively leans in as the recording plays, each word cutting sharper than the last. Kody's hands tremble visibly now, his face pale as he hears himself speak of strategies and choices he thought were private. The wives react in real time. Robyn's eyes fill with tears. Janelle shifts uncomfortably, Meri gasps, and Christine sits back with a quiet intensity, almost savoring the reveal. The prosecution presses on, and questions Kody about recordings and revelations. Kody stands, speaking in a low, even tone, but his fatigue and emotional toll are palpable. "I never wanted anyone to be hurt," he says, the shake in his voice revealing the weight of accountability. "I thought I was making correct choices, but I can see now how wrong I was." His words hang in the air, the combination of regret and desperation seeping into the room. Christine seizes the moment. Her voice rises not in anger, but in controlled precision. Remorse doesn't erase betrayal. "Kody, words alone do not fix the damage done in secret." Her eyes lock onto his, unblinking, reminding him that the past cannot be rewritten. The tension escalates even higher when a witness is called, a longtime friend of the family who testifies to private meetings and conversations she had witnessed. Her words are chosen with caution, but damning, painting a picture of manipulation and deception that even rocks the most composed member among them. Kody's face grows ever paler, the weight of his exposure bearing down upon him. The wives sit frozen, absorbing every word, their emotions running the gamut from shock and disbelief to silent fury. Robyn rises once more, tears streaming from her face, speaking directly to the court. "We all tried to hold this together," she says, her voice trembling but firm. "But sometimes, holding together isn't enough when trust has been broken." Her words echo, filling the courtroom with sadness and undeniable truth. Janelle's face has gone white, her hands shaking as she folds and unfolds her notes. Meri scoots back, clutching her purse, while Christine watches everything with a carefully calculated calm. Kody leans forward, elbows to the bench, and whispers under his breath, nearly to himself, "What have we done?" The session closes with the court anticipating new evidence the next day. Every character in this scene is taken to their breaking point. The wives slowly walk away, their shoulders tight, their eyes reflecting unspoken fears and questions. Kody lingers at the table, heavy with responsibility. The courtroom empties, leaving a thick silence in its wake, a silence carrying secrets, betrayals, and the possibility that nothing will ever be. The night had fallen, but the courtroom lights seemed to burn just as relentlessly, casting a harsh light on all the polished wood and high ceilings. The air feels heavier now, thick with exhaustion, tension, and anticipation. Every chair, every table, every shadow seemed to hum with the weight of secrets that refused to stay buried. Kody sat at the defendant's table, hands clasped firmly in front of him, jaw tense. His eyes flicker between his wives, searching for understanding, reassurance, or at least a sign that the family he has worked so hard to hold together still exists in some form. Christine, behind him, sits rigidly, her eyes daggers, calm, cutting. She presses her lips together tightly, but her gaze is piercing. She looks with great calculated interest at Kody and the other wives, each glance a subtle probing for weakness. Robyn sits beside Kody, twisting the beads on her bracelet until they click faintly, a nervous cadence echoing through the anxiety coursing through her veins. Janelle clings to her papers as if they were shields, while Meri's hands are clasped over her purse, the only protection between her and the storm of truth waiting to hit them all. The judge enters, his robe rustling softly as he settles into his chair. The room falls silent instantly. Opening remarks of the session are brief, but it's well known that what comes afterward will push each family member to their emotional limits. The prosecution rises, holding new evidence in hand documents, recordings, and testimony that promise to reveal the hidden machinations behind the family's carefully curated reality. The first witness is a family associate, a longtime observer of Kody and his wives. Their testimony is measured but damning. Private conversations, secret meetings, and moments of manipulation that none of the wives expected to be blown wide open. Every word cuts with precision, a hammer against the fragile foundation of trust which has barely survived the session so far. Next is Meri. She gets up very slowly, her legs trembling as she approaches the stand. Her voice starts shaking but strengthens with every word. "I never wanted anyone to be hurt," she says, eyes flicking briefly to Kody. "I thought hiding things was the safest way, but all it did was make the truth explode even harder when it came out." The courtroom listens in stunned silence. Her confession is raw, emotional, and impossible to ignore. Even the judge bends slightly forward, his interest piqued by the enormity of what's unfolding. Christine leans back slightly, crossing her arms, her expression unreadable. Then, she speaks in a voice low, deliberate, and cutting. "Protection isn't the same as honesty, Meri, and loyalty doesn't excuse deception. Today, the truth proves itself stronger than loyalty." Her gaze sweeps the room, landing briefly on each wife before returning to Kody. She speaks precisely to ensure her words will hurt, but still manage to control the story unfolding. Robyn, still seated beside Kody, bites her lip, fighting back tears. She knows Christine's words are true, but the pain of admitting it is almost unbearable. Janelle shifts in her seat, hands twisting nervously, and even Kody exhales sharply, the weight of exposure pressing down on him like a physical force. The prosecution presents the next piece of evidence, a recording of a private conversation between Kody and one of the wives. The content is explosive, revealing secret strategies, decisions made behind closed doors, and intentions that were never meant to see the light of day. The playback fills the courtroom, every word amplified in stark, unflinching clarity. Kody's hands now visibly shake and sweat forms on his brow. Robyn covers her mouth with her hand to stifle a sob. Janelle leans forward, her eyes wide with disbelief. Meri swallows hard, clinging to her purse, as if it can somehow shield her from the betrayal unfolding in real time. Christine remains seated, her posture calm, a flicker of satisfaction crossing her face. The tension is now palpable. The room feels like a pressure cooker, every heartbeat amplified, every whisper weighted with meaning. The prosecution presses on, digging deeper and deeper into secret alliances and manipulations that have gone on behind the family's public image. Kody's voice is low, almost strangled, as he tries to explain himself. "I never wanted anyone to feel betrayed," he says, trembling. "I thought I was making the right choices, but I can see now how wrong I was." His admission hangs in the air, a mixture of remorse and fear that resonates throughout the courtroom. Christine rises again, her presence commanding attention. "Words cannot undo what has been done," she says, voice steady but slicing through the tension like a knife. "Betrayal cannot be erased with apologies." Her eyes lock on Kody, but the intensity spreads throughout the room. All in the room feel the emotional truth that her words carry. The prosecution calls another witness, a longtime family friend who testifies to private meetings, hushed conversations, and secretive behavior that exposed cracks in the family's foundation. The words are careful but damning, painting a picture of manipulation, secrecy, and intentional deception. Kody flinches. This is the first time during this session that his composure cracks. The wives exchanged looks, some of shock, some of betrayal, others of restrained anger. Each new revelation ratchets up the emotional stakes, leaving everyone in the courtroom on edge. Robyn rises again, tears streaming down her face. "We tried to hold everything together," she says, her voice shaking but strong. But trust has been broken, and when trust breaks, there is no easy path back. Her words reverberate, echoing in the room with both sorrow and undeniable truth. Janelle's hands shake as she clutches her papers, trying to maintain composure, while Meri sits rigid, purse still clutched tightly, eyes wide and fixed on the unfolding drama. Christine remains a calm storm, observing every reaction, every micro-expression, calculating almost predatory in precision. Kody leans forward, his elbows on the table, murmuring under his breath, "What have we done?" A quiet acknowledgement that the very foundations of his family so mito. The late-night fluorescent lights make the courtroom almost surreal. Reflected from the polished wood, the harsh glare illuminates every tense expression. The air seems to vibrate with fatigue, fear, and frustration, like heavy fog that clings to them all. Slumped over at the defendant's table, Kody clasps his hands together tightly on the smooth wood. His jaw is tight as his eyes nervously flick from wife to wife, seeking some sign that the family he loves still exists beneath all that betrayal and deceit. Behind him, Christine sits up straight, her posture rigid, the controlled intensity of her body speaking volumes. Every muscle speaks of readiness, ready to strike, to expose, to take control of this emotional battlefield the court has become. Her lips press tightly together, but her eyes are sharp, canvassing the space for any indication of weakness. Robyn sits beside Kody, flipping the beads on her bracelet out of habit. Yet, it's now an absent-minded staccato clicking that has reduced to tense stillness as she braces herself for what comes next. Janelle fidgets at the seat, her notes clutched like a shield, while Meri holds tight to her purse as if it could somehow anchor her in the chaos of revelations yet to come. The judge enters, and a hush descends, heavier than any before. The session begins with the prosecution presenting the final wave of evidence, documents, recordings, and testimony designed to expose the full extent of the fractures in the family. Each piece is carefully laid out, a chain of truths that, when linked together, reveal a tale of manipulation, secrecy, and betrayal not imagined by any. Kody stands up and begins speaking in a low tone, burdened with fatigue and guilt. "I never wanted anyone to be hurt," he says, swallowing hard. "I tried to make decisions for the best of the family, but I see now my choices caused pain I didn't intend." His words are raw, tinged with both regret and fear. The courtroom listens in silence as this man faces his demons, brought about by decisions made behind closed doors. Christine leans forward slightly, her voice even but cutting. "Intentions don't erase outcomes, Kody," she says. "And sometimes the truth hurts far more than the absence of it ever could." Her gaze sweeps across the room, landing briefly on each wife, a silent acknowledgement of shared betrayal, but also of personal survival. Robyn's lips quiver with impending tears, Janelle's hands shake uncontrollably, and Meri goes rigid, her eyes wide and contemplative, fortifying herself against the storm of emotions the next minutes will unleash. The prosecution calls its final witness, a former family associate who'd been privy to private conversations and furtive meetings. The testimony is deliberate, exacting, and damning. With each word, the picture sharpens. Webs of alliances, decisions, and betrayals no wife could have anticipated. The courtroom reacts in real time. Robyn presses her hand against her chest. Janelle's hands twist in nervous tension, and Meri swallows audibly, her eyes darting to Kody. Christine permits herself a small exhale, a tiny acknowledgement that this story, unfolding before them, is far more explosive than she could have hoped. Then, the bombshell. The associate reveals an audio recording of Kody discussing a huge family decision with one of the wives, actions and decisions done without the others knowing and having repercussions on their relationships. The audio fills the courtroom. Kody's voice is calm, almost deliberate in its intended outcomes and consequences. The wives react immediately. Robyn's hands fly to her face as she starts to cry. Meri collapses slightly in her seat, clutching her purse with white-knuckled intensity. Janelle leans forward, her jaw tightened, eyes wide in disbelief. Christine sits still, the tiniest hint of satisfaction crossing her features. The judge stops, letting this weight sink in. "Mr. Brown," he says gravely, "are you aware of how all of these actions have affected your family?" Kody exhales shakily. "Yes, Your Honor," he says, "and I take full responsibility for every decision that hurt others, whether it was on purpose or not." The prosecution presses on, introducing financial records, emails, and messages that betray secretive dealings and strategic alliances. Suffocating, the courtroom seems to close in around them as wall after wall of revealed deceptions falls upon them. Each wife reacts differently. Robyn with heartbreak, Janelle in denial, Meri fearful, Christine calculating. Kody leans forward, grasping the edge of the table, feeling the weight of the exposure crushing him from all sides. Robyn gets up again, her voice shaking but determined. "We tried to hold this family together," she says, her face wet with tears. "But trust has been shattered, and now we face the consequences." Her words resound through the room, a mixture of sorrow and undeniable truth which no one can ignore. But Christine is inscrutable, and her next words cut through the silence. "Consequences are not just about punishment," she says, voice measured. "They are about understanding the cost of deception, of betrayal, and of choices made without consideration for those who depend on you." Her eyes lock onto Kody, unblinking. A silent declaration that actions have consequences that even familial bonds cannot protect against. The session comes to an end, and the court falls silent. Each one is left to process what has come to light. Kody exhales, exhausted, aware still that perhaps the most difficult moments remain ahead. The wives gather their belongings slowly, faces pale, eyes fixed on the floor, each lost in her own thoughts. The courtroom empties out slowly, leaving behind a heavy stillness, residue of tension, grief, and unresolved conflict. Outside, the night is pitch black. The courthouse steps reflect back the harsh, artificial light, echoing the emotional turbulence inside. Reporters whisper to one another, speculating on the impact of the session. The Brown family walks slowly together, yet apart, the weight of revelations upon each a little differently. Every glance, every gesture, every unspoken word held the magnitude of the chaos that has unfolded. Kody walks slowly, his shoulders hunched, lost in thought over the choices that have been revealed. Robyn walks beside him, silent, her face streaked with tears. Janelle's face is unreadable, a mix of fear and contemplation. Meri walks noiselessly, clutching her purse, while Christine brings up the rear in a controlled storm of observation, determination, and quiet satisfaction. Physically, the family is together, but emotionally, the fractures are more apparent than ever.